Video mute, Brad.
Hello and good morning, Center for Spiritual Living, Palm Desert and beyond. We are the Sensational Six, and we're delighted to be here with you today. So before we begin, we're going to do just a nice brief invocation. So I invite you to join me. And know that as we join together, we do so in love and in joy. I know that this love and joy ripples out to all those who are joining us this morning and beyond, into the world at large, that this beautiful ripple effect just bathes us and everyone surrounding us and the entire world in love and in joy. And I am just so grateful to be here with the fabulous five, to be part of the Sensational Six, and for each and every person who has joined us this morning or will join us down the road. And I just simply know that this time together unfolds absolutely perfectly, and I release it, and so it is.
So it is.
So good morning, Sensational Six. We have, we're going to introduce ourselves to you like we do every week, and we try to come up with a different question, a different topic each week, so you can get to know us a little bit better. And this morning's question is, what is your favorite new thought song and why? Well, I'm the one that came up with that question, and I got to tell you, I regretted it the second I started thinking about it, because how can I just choose one? Oh my God, I love our music, New Thought music, Gary Lynn Floyd, Daniel Nahmod, Karen Drucker. There's so many amazing songs, and it really depends on my mood, which one's my favorite in the moment. So I was talking to my husband about it, and together we kind of landed on One Power, because I think, One Power, it just sums up so much of our teaching. And I remember the first time I heard it, it was the first time Daniel Nahmod sang it at Asilomar. And I just remember those 1,000 people going, oh my goodness, it was amazing. And then my very, very, very good friends did a version of it in 4-part harmony that just, oh, so that is my favorite song, and my favorite version is by the Four Friends, which include my good friends, Gilmore and Brian. And that 4-part harmony, the way it just puts that song together in such a beautiful dance. So that is my favorite New Thought song for the moment. And I'm going to pass on to Dale.
That's Reverend Dale to you.
Reverend Dale, Reverend Dale. I forgot to say good morning, Reverends. This is our first time we get to say Reverend on this show, and it's so exciting. And I just blew it right out of the gate.
We're friends, I love it. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Lori. I am going to go with Lori's Artist. This is a song by Daniel Nahmod as well, and it's called Raising the Veil. It's from his album called Sacred Love, which is one of my all-time favorite albums because it's really about the intimacy with spirit. And I'm just going to read you one of the stanzas of this song because it always hits my heart. He says, I'm raising the veil between me and my God, no separation, no distance at all. God is right here in my heart. I'm raising the veil. And every time I hear that song, everything just parts for me, and I'm in that state of oneness. And so it's one of my all-time favorites, heartfelt songs. So that's mine. I'm going to hand it over now to Reverend Gail.
Thank you, Dale. And I am Reverend Gail Morton. And I admittedly, just like Lori, have no one favorite. There are so many. So today I selected a song that for me is more considered a classic than strictly New Thought. And that song is I Hope You Dance, and it's as sung by Leanne Womack. And why? Well, my daughters and now my granddaughters will tell you that this is my favorite song for them, as it's a song that's based upon the narration of a mother who is expressing the wish that her children will step out into life and embrace it and take a chance on love and faith. And what is not New Thought about that? The opening line is my favorite. It says, I hope you never lose your sense of wonder. And the song sums up everything for me in the refrain. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. So one of the greatest gifts for me is to watch my children and now my grandchildren dance. Reverend Brad, how about you? And I'm not sure that he's made it in.
Hey, Cheryl.
There he is.
My fellow panelists can double check my internet connection. It seems okay from where I am, but I've been having trouble this morning logging in. But the song that stands out to me that I probably heard a lot on Sundays and other church activities was a song called Moon Rider. It came out of the Up With People program decades ago. And I first heard it when I was like 17 or 18. And it was written by astronaut Eugene Cernan. And when he was up in the space capsule while other guys were on the moon, he was looking at the Earth. And one of the cool lines is, I see a world without any borders, without any fighting, without any fear. And it's just a riveting song. And I've sung it a cappella many times. But that's just been a powerful one for me. Who's next? Reverends?
Hello, I'm Reverend William Conway. And most reverends, or most people who are spiritual, tend to be like the calm lakes and like the music that is mellow and calming and frankly puts me to sleep. My spirituality is more explosive, more on the creative side of spirit. Just like right now, we're going through the wildfires up in Apple Valley. And of course, that is rather destructive, but the creative process on the other side of that, of meadows being created, new seeds being germinated, a rebirthing of that area after this is what I go towards in my spirituality. And so my spiritual song that I'm really listening a lot to lately is from a band called Tool, and they're a hard rocking band, and the song is called Pneuma. And I want to read to you the opening verse. It says, "We are spirit bound to flesh. We go round 1 foot nailed down, but bound to reach out beyond this flesh, become pneuma. We are will and wonder, bound to recall, remember, we are born of one breath, one word." Now the word pneuma, if you look that up, means the vital spirit, soul, or creative process in a person. And so that for me right now is the song that I listen to multiple times a day. And I love the power of the guitar in that. I love the energy. I just love spirit and the energy that spirit has in its expression. And that's my force and my driving force of my spirituality. So we have Reverend Cheryl next. Thank you.
Who just got a tickle. Anyway, my favorite song is when I first started going to the center. It was one of the songs that we sang every week during meditation, and it still remained my favorite song. And it's "I Send My Love." It's by Karen Drucker. And we changed the word, from "I send my love" to "I send my joy." But it's "I send my love over the mountain. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me." And what it was so cool, because it's a song about giving your love first and then waiting to receive. And so to me, it just meant it was everything that the center was about, giving love and about the receiving it in return. I'm sorry, I still have a little tickle going on. I can't really go with there. But anyway, just the beauty of that song. I used to, after I learned it, I used to stand in the backyard and sing it all the time. So, excuse me just a second. Oh, I love this. Getting a tickle right now. Anyway, it just opened my heart, and it still does. Opens me up to receiving joy, to receiving love and peace, and all the things that we put into that song. And it still holds such a special place in my heart. Every time we sing it at service, I just opens me up completely, open and receptive. So, excuse me, gang. our topic for today is waiting for delivery. And that one means a lot to me, because when we do prayer work, a lot of times people will say, well, I prayed and prayed and nothing's happening. What's going on? Why hasn't it appeared? It's, I'm putting the prayer out there and God's supposed to answer my prayer. So where's the answer? But I have to stop and ask, what are you doing to make this a reality? Are you still holding that vision of what you desire? Are you still walking the walk? So one of the things that we always say at the center is treat and move your feet. In other words, if you're putting it out there, it's not like you get to just, well, you can just sit on the couch and say, okay, God, I'm ready. Just bring it on, But what are you doing to make it manifest? And why are you looking at it as on a time clock? Because time is a man-made convention. In other words, we have time in order to keep our lives in order. So if I said to William, I'll be at your house when? I'll be there in God's time. It's not like you can't just you just can't do that with our human existence. We have to have some way to keep our lives organized or on our thoughts in place. But when you look at it, this is an eternity. This is eternal everything. And so you have to look at that everything is unfolding in process in the perfect right order. And when you think of it that way, it just opens it up to seeing that, for one thing, you're expecting it to show up in one particular way, where maybe there's some things that you need to work on and you need to get ready in order to receive this good. So it's like if I'm sitting here, which that's what I'm putting out to the universe now. I've been single for a long time. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to meet someone that's right for me. I'm ready. It's open. And if I sit on the couch, the only guy I'm going to meet is the UPS driver, So what are you going to do? You've got to get out there. You've got to start taking action. Now, nothing against my UPS driver. He's a really nice guy, but I think he's already married, but still. But the point is that this is a reciprocal universe. What you put out is what you're going to get back, period. You put the word out there and then you just sit there. Yes, God's still in the mix. God is still present. God is still working in your perfect right order. But what are you doing to make you see and realize and manifest what you're desiring? What are you doing? How are you taking yourself into this equation? Or have you just put the prayer out there and then said, okay, see what happens? It's like you've got to, when you put a prayer out, you're putting out a feeling around whatever it is you desire. And that's what's going to make it manifest, is that feeling. So if you walk away from that prayer saying, oh, gee, I hope that works, then you really did not put the prayer, you did not put the feeling behind that prayer. Because when you put that feeling in there, you don't have any doubts anymore. It is just perfectly unfolding just as it should. And so just remember, you are the one that needs to put this into action. That's why we have free will. That's why we have choice. That's why we have ultimately billions of opportunities and unlimited supply of abundance. So what is your part in it is what I'm asking you right now. What is your part? And how are you showing up in your life? So I'd like to turn it over to anyone else that would like to speak on that.
So I'd be happy to jump in. Thanks, Cheryl. That was a great introduction. So for me, the truth is that everything we do is prayer. Everything I speak, everything I feel, everything I act is prayer. So an issue here for me is what makes one prayer powerful and another not. And so when I was experiencing a time when it didn't feel like my prayers were unfolding for me, it really helped me to better understand prayer and look at a little bit of background. So what did Ernest Holmes say about prayer? He said, prayer is a tool to live a better life, simply stated. And he had an absolutely evolutionary belief that all prayers are answered. And he said they're all answered as long as the person praying knows how to pray aright. And for Holmes, praying aright meant two really simple things. First, just talking to God in your own mind through your own thoughts. And second, feeling and recognizing a spiritual law that's always existed and to put yourself in alignment with it. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But notice that Ernest Holmes never said use 5 steps or use fancy words, never a part of his explanation. So the truth is, we live in a perfect universe of infinite possibilities, but it needs to be seen mentally before it can become a part of our experience. So causation is always from within. So what we perceive as unanswered prayer is often just a misuse of mental and spiritual law. So when Holmes said praying aright, what did he really mean? Well, I think he meant that we understand the first principle that's fundamental, absolutely fundamental to understanding how our thought operates, which is we're surrounded by an infinite, intelligent, divine energy. And this energy is the cause of everything. And therefore is that out of which everything that is must unfold. So the possibility of healing or manifesting anything rests entirely on this theory. We're surrounded by an infinite intelligence which reacts to our thought according to law. And how does it respond? Or what's this law I'm talking about? Well, it's an aspect of divine energy. The only way it can respond is by corresponding or by imparting itself through us. And I think the best way to summarize that is Ernest Holmes said it this way: the highest God and the innermost God is one God. And Jesus said it this way. Jesus said, the Father and I are one. So with a little bit of background, I'll turn it back over to my fellow Revs to see what else they have to say.
I guess I'll go next off of that because Gail, that was, we're done. We could go home right now after that explanation. I'm telling you what. But one thing that you said I'd like to elaborate on a little bit, and that was about the Ernest Holmes and about the 5 steps that we teach. He never talked about that, and that's true. But for our listeners here, I want to emphasize that the reason, or one of the reasons why we have this process of what we call the 5-step is so that you can align yourself with the truth of who you are. It's basically getting yourself out of the mundane, the whirlwind of this reality that we've created as race consciousness, as your own individual expression of spirit. It gets you out of that mindset and back into focus on yourself. And that's the reason why we teach the 5-step process, even though Ernest Holmes didn't teach it, because he's absolutely right. In fact, I forgot who said it. To commune is God is, I am. And that's all that really truly needs to be said. God is, I am. But unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but the reality is most of us don't realize the true potential or the truth of who and what we are. And that is nothing less than spirit itself expressing upon this realm, upon itself. And so that 5-step process allows us to get reconnected, realigned, so that again, our thoughts have power because of, like Cheryl said, the feeling. The feeling is the power behind the thought that we have. And so that's why, again, the 5-step process is taught for our center. And if you need any help with the prayer process or anything like that, any one of these wonderful, beautiful reverends are always here to help us out. And if anybody would like to add on to what I'd said, I open it up to the class.
I'll jump in. That was great. All these shares are so great. For me, it's really all about it's consciousness. It all boils down to consciousness. Gail said it, or Reverend Gail said it, and Reverend Cheryl started it out. Whenever I'm desiring to manifest or to create a greater good in my life and it's not happening and I've done my prayer work, I always know the onus rests on me because there's something in my consciousness that doesn't believe that I can have whatever that reality is in my life. And so I always go back to, I do the prayer work, but I always look at my consciousness and say, okay, what is in my mind or my consciousness or my subconscious that is telling me I don't deserve that or I don't believe that. So, I love our philosophy. And I also know, though, that we've got to do the work. A bunch of us have already said you got to treat and move your feet. And the work can seem challenging, but I will tell you it is so worth it. And once we get into the habit of doing the action step after the prayer work, it becomes second nature to us. And we always know, okay, I've treated and now I'm ready to move my feet, because the cool thing is that spirit is going to guide you or guide us to whatever action it is that needs to follow up on the treatment, whether it's consciousness work, whether it's to take that first step into opening up whatever that new reality is for you. But it's a beautiful way to work our lives, and it can be fun, and it is beginning with consciousness. So that's what my 2 cents on that.
I can jump in there for just a second because everybody it just all of a sudden came full circle for me with what everyone has said. The thing is that when you look at what you're thinking about, as Gail said, Reverend Gail said, you know what, if we just call each other by our first names, please understand, we're not being impolite to our fellow reverends. We're just not used to it yet, but we'll get there. Anyway, but the full circle is that one of the things that we were taught in ministerial school is called consciousness on demand. And what that is keeping your consciousness at that level. So like Gail was saying, it's not just a 5 steps that we have to stay in. It's what the 5 steps are is to train you to go to consciousness on demand, to understand that there's one God. I am eternally connected to that God. Then I state what my desire is, or whatever it is, my affirmations for what I wish to have appear in my life. And then I release it with gratitude to the universe. And so if you think about it, when your thoughts are staying in that same pattern, when you're always consciously aware that there's only one power, it just changes your outlook about everything around you. And then realizing that you are eternally connected to that power. Wow, you're really stronger than you believe you are sometimes. You have to recognize that you are a powerful being and that you have the ability to create within your own life what it is you desire. And you just walk through your life. I love that. The next step is my favorite, not just the affirmation step, but that one of gratitude. If you just walk around in gratitude, I mean, it's just amazing how the world unfolds for you. But also, the one about release is when you're releasing something, when we're talking about the 5, we used to say, this was Assembly of God, which I was brought up in, totally crazy. But if you're going to take something and put it on the altar, you're not allowed to go back and pick it up. So in other words, when you release it, you release it. Don't go back and say, oh, well, maybe let me go back and I can tell God how this is supposed to unfold. I can do this. I can, I know exactly how this is supposed to look, without even thinking about the magnitude and the magnificence of spirit. So when you're waiting, what I'm saying is that when you're releasing this prayer, there's nothing to wait on. No waiting for delivery. It's already in process. We just have to recognize that everything is unfolding in divine, perfect, right order. No matter how it's appearing to us, God's always in the mix. So somebody else, Reverend Lori, you want to go?
Yes, I'll definitely go. So it's funny, I went in a completely different direction with this in a way. I think I might be a little obsessed with Hamilton. And I love the song Wait for It that Aaron Burr sings, if anybody's seen it. It's a wonderful song. And I just started thinking how interesting these 2 characters, one who is so cautious and he just wants to wait to see how the wind's blowing before he makes any commitment even to his own beliefs, which is fascinating. And the other one who writes like he's running out of time, who's just almost in constant driven behavior and just knows what he believes and goes for it. And I find that interesting. And I thought, well, I think I started off like Aaron Burr, in this teaching, that I wasn't certain. I didn't know what I believed. I was always waiting. I was waiting for my life to unfold. And I think I lean a little towards Hamilton now, where I'm very clear on my beliefs. I just don't doubt what I know, but yet at the same time, I remain open at the top, which is a wonderful place to be, in that balance. So I look at Hamilton as being a little driven, right? He's a little bit of a crazy person in a way. He goes all the time. And that was me years ago. I never stopped. I was just a very driven person. And somehow I managed to let go of that and find a balance. And I think the shift, and I really thought a lot about this, was for me in treatment. And this has happened beautifully with my prayer partner. And if you don't have a prayer partner, find one, because it is an amazing way to connect with somebody. And you may see this evolution as well. So when we first began, she was a new practitioner. Actually, she was in practitioner training. And as she grew into her practitionership and became a practitioner, we just began to naturally evolve our prayers. And we discovered we were no longer praying for anything. We were praying from a state of being. And we were just dancing in that energy. And our hearts just would expand, in our minds. And it was a place of such gratitude. And from there, my life has just unfolded perfectly without me directing it so much. Like I totally get that my life is going to unfold perfectly, and everything will show up in my path that guides me. I no longer need to be quite as in control as I used to. I used to be very specific, and yet you need to find a balance, because you don't want to completely let go of the wheel. I mean, I like to have, some vision and put that in. So it's that balance, and when I'm in that balance, I don't engage in the energy of waiting for it anymore. It's done, and I can let it go, and I can just be. I can just be. I can just remember who I am, and then that's it. And so even if there's a specific thing I'm working towards and it's not in my life yet, it doesn't bother me anymore, because I think, okay, either it's on its way, yay, or there's something much better, because I've learned to always leave space for the better. I could have never, ever, over the years imagined where my life would end up. I had no plans to move to Palm Desert. None. I had no plans to become a minister. None. Everything that's unfolded in my life has unfolded in amazing and beautiful ways. And I think it's because I got out of the way and I worked more on being. And then out of the being comes the doing. So just remember who you are. Remember who you are from that place. It just shifts phenomenally.
I think it would be really helpful for us as ministers of this beautiful philosophy, because we've got people that are probably listening right now that are in dire straits, that where they've been waiting for money, especially with some of the stuff that's coming up in our world right now. So as ministers of this philosophy, what would you tell people who are saying, well, I can't wait, I need money, that people that maybe aren't at such a level of consciousness of faith that we might be? What would be your guidance for that type of thing, where it's like money and a place to live, that kind of need? What do you tell people that inspires them to hold on to the faith in those aspects or those situations?
I'll step in here. Let's first of all see if there's a question. Let me share on that first, then we'll go to the question. Can you? Sorry, I was looking at something else. I'm having internet issues this morning. I remember years ago when I moved to another state and with my fiance at the time, and I was looking for work. And I remember sitting on the couch at my home with a buddy. We were doing prayer work together. I was not quite a practitioner, and he ended up being a practitioner a few years down the road. And I remember I was talking about, we put out resumes and do this other kind of stuff. And I said, maybe some of you heard the story. There's got to be something within me. It needs to be within me before it shows up outside of me. So how come I can't just sit on my couch and have checks come to my mailbox? As well as the balance of putting out 100 resumes a day. And it still goes back to all the wisdom that we've been hearing this morning. And I hope that for each of you that are listening, you find one key point from one person. You say, I'm going to take that wisdom because I attracted it to me today and use it this week. For me, in that story I was just sharing, I realized that we say the phrase treat and move your feet, but don't move your feet unless it comes from inspired action. So in that place of stillness and prayer and more stillness and prayer, within minutes or moments, something will rise up from with you of who you need to call, what you need to do from that kind of action. And it still goes, and for the immediacy, that was a great topic to get Dale threw out to us, still the immediacy of, for right now, for it to be outside of me, it must be within me. And the two key most powerful ways to get it in me is prayer and meditation. And it would be worth it for me to do that all day long so that the next morning, whatever physicality of life I need can show up. One of the questions is, as expressions of spirit, are all of our desired manifestations in alignment with the divine plan? I've shared my point about the divine plan. Who would like to share on that?
I guess I will, since nobody's chiming in. Well, there's this idea of the divine plan, I think, that maybe comes from Judeo-Christian philosophy, that there's some plan that God has created and we're all just following it. And Ernest Holmes teaches that the divine plan is a little different than that. The divine plan is anything that is in alignment with love and spirit. It's not this step-by-step plan that our life proceeds upon. We are the ones that create our lives through consciousness, and the plan is whatever is coming through us. So I would say that if you're creating from a place of, well, whatever place you're creating from, that's what's going to show up in your life. But I believe that the higher consciousness that you're creating from, if you're creating from that place of knowing who you are, which is the only place you need to be. Many have already spoken to that point. The God is I am is really all you need to know, and everything proceeds beautifully because you're established in what Ernest Holmes talks about, is that will of God as love. And then things just really unfold in a remarkable way. But that's what we teach. If you're coming from love, then that's what we'll demonstrate. If you're coming from anger or hatred, you will demonstrate experiences that have that resonance with them. So that's why we always talk about consciousness and creating and praying from that higher level, so you can have a life that's resonant with joy and peace and all those great attributes of God.
So I think that, thanks, Dale, for clarifying that. And, in both of the questions that were just answered, both of the questions have to do with the timing of prayer being answered and prayer being answered in and of itself. And one thing that we haven't brought up in saying that prayers are always answered is the truth that we might not always like the timing or the answer that we prayed for. But this could be a reason why. So conflicting thoughts cancel each other out in the law. So if you pray for one thing, abundance or prosperity, or I have more money than I could ever need, and then you actually believe the opposite, you don't believe that that is true about yourself, your prayer is not going to outpicture in the way that you desire. So a great question to ask yourself, if what you pray for is not outpicturing as your life or in the timing that you desire, is what do I need to embody to reveal X, that what I desire? Lori always brings that question in beautifully from her coaching background. What is it that I need to believe or embody to reveal X? And if what you need to embody and what you actually believe, think, and feel are different, you always, always have an opportunity to shift your belief. And then your new belief becomes what outpictures as your life. And because we don't actually create, we say a lot that we're creators, but what we really do is we use the power of divine energy, and that creates for us based upon what we've embodied. So we have to remain open to receive. So infinite divine energy can only do for us what it can do through us. So we provide the consciousness, what we embody, and divine energy makes the gift. It's really that simple.
I want to go back to Dale's question about when someone's in immediate need and they feel like they just, they can't wait, right? They can't wait for that delivery. What is it that you can do in that space? Because I've definitely been there in my life, and I think most of us have had at least short bursts of, the thing that helped me the most, and this may be true for you, is, or at least give it a try, is when you're in need, it creates a certain vibrational energy within us, right? That's a little and worried and concerned and doubtful and because you're thinking, where how am I going to pay my rent? Where am I going to get food? I mean, those are all such basic needs. So it makes sense that that would bring up a certain amount of vibrational stress in our body and in our mind and in our consciousness. So trying to treat over that, trying to pray over that, is a little like, putting whipped cream on trash, right? I mean, it's not going to work. The whipped cream will eventually melt, and you'll still be left with the anxiety. So for me, what really helped was shifting my attention. And it takes a lot of effort. I mean, you might want to even put a rubber band on your wrist or set an alarm, but continually going back to gratitude. Because in that moment, no matter what's happening, there will always be something present, something to be grateful for. And just dancing with that over and over and over again in your mind. And as you go to fear, shifting back to faith, shifting back to what is in the moment true. Because in the moment, I've seen people that have been so incredibly stressed over money and yet sitting in a beautiful home, or or having a meal, or sitting with friends or family. I mean, there's always something to be grateful for. And also call a practitioner. If you're finding that you can't, you're just so stressed or so nervous, you have all that energy, call a practitioner. Let us see it for you. Let us know it for you and with you. That really helps, getting support, because sometimes it's difficult to shift our energy from anxiety to gratitude. And we may need some help doing that. Somebody to ask us the right questions, somebody to help us to look, somebody to just stand with us in consciousness and support us. So call a practitioner if you're finding you're having difficulty doing that. But the biggest thing for me was being able to occupy my mind with gratitude and bringing that anxiety level down and just really deeply appreciating what is in the moment, even if it's just my breath.
That was beautiful, Lori. Thank you, Reverend Lori. Also, I would like to, one thing that is keeps coming to mind for me when we're talking about this is that we are in a system and a social structure that has provided the ability for us to work within the social environment that we were raised in, whatever it is. And so we have certain beliefs and we have certain thoughts and we have mindsets, is what I like to call them, around what's happened in the past. And I just saw the best quote, and I wish I could remember who said it, but it said, if you're so busy looking at the past, your back is to the future. So you're just staying in that same mindset. But that's the point. is breaking that mindset. So if you're praying for abundance and for health in your finances or health in your body or whatever it is, what is your mindset around that? And I know that for myself, I was brought up in really extreme poverty. And so I found out that I had for a long, long time a poverty mindset. In other words, I would think, well, if this doesn't work out, I know how to be poor. I've done that. I can do that. I can be poor, you know, if I want to, because I know what that entails, because that's how I was brought up. But you have to have the spiritual courage, the conviction within yourself to know that that's not the truth of who you are. And that's not the truth of what the universe is. It's just something that you have been taught. So look around all of the beliefs and all the things that, you know, the things that are not working in your life, and look and see if there's a belief behind this that is keeping you from your good. It really can. If you always expect it to be a poverty situation, then guess what? That's what you're going to have. That's what you're going to get. If you think there's not anybody out there for me in the universe, you know, because I'm just so, you know, blah, 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 you know, but the reality is that it doesn't have to be for you. You have to be for you. But there might be somebody that wants to walk alongside your path. You don't want to jump on somebody else's path and be there, you know, towing behind them. And you don't want to tow somebody else behind you. You just want to walk alongside people. So if you start thinking about, like in a relationship, for example, what are you doing to make your path yours? Are you looking for somebody else to fulfill you or to answer your prayers by, you know, fulfilling needs within you? So once you get all that stuff, all that mindset gone out of you, then you're open and receptive to what's new, what's coming in. So if you're harboring all that stuff and giving rent in your head to all these preconceived notions that you've been brought up with, well, then expect the same. Expect the same. It's like Lori said, it takes mental work to get to this point to where you don't always just immediately go to the negative. Because that, unfortunately, our media, everybody in this country, it's always about what's bad that's going on. I'm waiting for a news channel where all they have on there is all the good stuff that went on today in the world. I will watch that one every day. It's about your mindset. So, Lori, thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to, because I just want people to understand this whole thing that we teach about changing your mind, because sometimes we make it sound so simple. One of my early teachers was Reverend Bill, and he always taught this idea of release and replace. You can't just let go of something without replacing it with a new belief. And so many of the people that are in the popular eye right now, as far as New Thought, especially like Joe Dispenza, they're teaching us about the plasticity of the mind, but we have to understand what we're walking through. So if I've been brought up, like Cheryl's great example, Reverend Cheryl's great example, if I've been brought up to believe in poverty and that's my life, in order to shift it to abundance is my life, I've got to, like what she said, I've got to see that that's just something I've learned and I experience. It's not who I am. I don't own it. But then to move to the next step, to say that I, you know, as an expression of God, of the allness of God, I can have as much of anything as I choose, because the spirit always says yes. But there's this point that's really important to be aware of when we're changing our minds, that we're making a new groove, as Joe Dispenza might say, we're carving a whole new groove in mind. And we've got to give ourselves whatever time it takes to become this new consciousness, and not to let go of faith, not to say, well, I tried thinking that way and it's just not working. We've got to keep at it, because eventually, in whatever time it takes for a person to get to a belief system, once that's set, then you're going to have a whole new experience. And so we can tie that into what Cheryl was speaking of, the whole delivery. You know, waiting for delivery is really waiting for consciousness to change, so that the onus is on us. But just to understand, it might take a little time to change your belief. That's normal. I think everybody on this panel has experienced that adjustment period. But the cool thing is, once you commit to that and just allow yourself to walk through that shift in mind and consciousness, once you make that great shift and you're in alignment with spiritual truth, then you're permanently there and your good flows. So just to be aware of what you might be walking through with the change.
I'm gonna jump on that because that was just such a wonderful thing to remind people of. And I was somebody who suffered from horrible, horrible anxiety. And what really set me on the path to healing was understanding how my mind worked. And back then, this was many years ago, so there wasn't as much known. Joe Dispenza wasn't around. But I read a little book about feel the fear and do it anyway. And that was life changing. And that made me hungry to find out more. Well, what is this? What's happening in my mind that I'm experiencing this? And how do I change it? So that's another great thing to do while you're waiting for delivery. Go do some studying. There's so many wonderful videos on YouTube. Learn about neuroplasticity and how it works so that you can understand the mechanisms that you're working with, because everything we teach has now been proved by science. How cool is that? Really, quantum physics and neuroplasticity, those two topics are so proving what we teach in religious science. And to me, that is, we're not talking about that enough. I just want to talk about that all day long because it's so exciting. And if you understand how you make neural connections and pathways, then you get that you can make a new one. And the old one will just take care of itself. It really does. That's the cool thing. It just, that release and replace. Well, the release just happens because when you're focused on in a different direction, you begin to create that neural pathway. The old neural pathway, it just shrivels up and dies, and it stops becoming your default. And it does take effort, but if you understand the mechanisms you're working with, at least for me, because I have a very logical mind, I want to know how things work. I like the explanations. If you've got a mind like that as well, spend some time learning about all the different ways that what we're talking about actually works from a scientific perspective, because that will help you to build up your belief that this stuff really does work.
So, what about prayer traps? Is there such a thing as a prayer trap? And I'm going to share with you that absolutely in my life, I run into what I call prayer traps. And maybe we can all speak to our individual prayer traps. But for me, I can find that I can fixate on a particular outcome. This is what I want to outpicture as my life. And then I'm blind, absolutely blind to its amazing emergence in a very, very different form. So the truth is, I have to remember and embody that divine timing is always perfect. And when the time comes for the question to be answered, for the condition to be faced, for the need to be supplied, I always find that it's met in overflowing measure. But sometimes I also find I need to build my foundation to be ready for what's next. So there's a couple of questions I ask myself when I'm waiting for my prayer to be answered, and I wonder if they might speak to you as well. So the first thing is, am I open to this prayer's demonstration in an unfamiliar form? Because as I said, I can fall into that prayer trap where I am so focused on looking for one end result. So am I open to this demonstration in an unfamiliar form? I don't want to miss it. It'll be amazing. And then the second question I ask myself is, am I trusting that it will be made clear when the time comes? Okay, again, divine timing is always perfect. And that's a trap I can fall into, is forgetting that that is the truth. So those are two questions that help me, and maybe sharing them, that will help you.
I could share on that. I'm laughing. That's how I ended up here, living here on this call. Dawn and I were looking for a place to live, and I had something in mind. I mean, I knew what we wanted. I guess he wanted it too, but I knew what I wanted, and I was very focused in a specific direction. But because I had practiced being open for so long, that when we came out here to visit friends, we just thought, well, we'll take a look at a couple places, just see what our money can buy. I had no intentions, was not on my radar to move here. Long story short, 8 hours later, we owned a house. But that was because I just trusted that feeling inside of me that said, okay, change of plans. This just in, this new thing is happening, and just say yes. And, years ago, I would have been afraid to do that. I'd have been afraid to make a mistake, that I was going to move all my stuff out here. Summer would come and I would hate it, and I would have hesitated. But I just trusted that was the right move for us. And obviously, it's been an amazing move. But if you had asked me the day before we bought the house if it was a possibility I'd move out here, I'd have said no, 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 hot, no. So, it's that getting you. It's possible to get to the point where you are, what's the word? Fluid with life, and an understanding that there are no mistakes. Just take that next guided step and see where the adventure leads. And it's such a great way to be in the world versus I got to have it this way. That shift took a long time, but wow, I'm grateful. Life is so much more fun now, and I really do see it as an adventure, which I don't think I did before.
So
All right,
Brad,
I see that we're getting kind of close to time, but I've got a little story, a little analogy for everyone, because it seems like we've gone on a few different angles or subjects. So one was controlling the outcome, controlling your life, or controlling how it's to be done. But was also another part about the divine plan. Do you remember when you first learned how to drive and you got behind that wheel and it was so erratic that you were going down the road, but you were like a bumper car going all over the place because you felt you had to control every single aspect of that? And it was so intense and so unnerving. And Lord knows if you had to do your first drive with a standard, not an automatic, and then try to figure out how to change gears. Do you remember that time in your life? But now you jump in that car and you could be halfway asleep and get to New York City and don't even know how you got there. That right there is the idea of having to control every aspect. You control the direction you want to go, but you don't have to control every single little thing. You just allow life to unfold, and before you know it, you can drive and it's so smooth and you're able to stay in your lane. Now, where you want to go, that's what you're dictating to spirit. Whether you want to go enjoy the mountains, or whether you want to go to the Grand Canyon, or whether you want to go to the beach, those are your destinations. Those are your overall ideas of what you want to experience, where you want your life to go. But along the way, there's all these exits and off ramps and things to choose, and where you might want to go to the Rocky Mountains, but all of a sudden you see a lake off to the side, and boom, there you go. You take off on a tangent. Well, that in itself lays into the idea of a divine plan. There is no really divine plan that this is what your life is going to be. The only divine plan is to experience life. Is spirit through us, as us, is experiencing itself. That's a very big sentence right there. And please rewind this when you rewatch it, but believe me, this is absolutely true. You are spirit, the entirety of spirit. You are it in action. And that is how it expresses and experiences itself, is through us. So allow your life to be on that highway or that back road or that dirt road, whatever it is that gets you excited, how you want to experience life, that's what you do. You don't need to worry about, like Gail was saying, every little piece of how to get there. Just know the overall destination of what you want to experience and allow life to happen. And when that opportunity arises, someone brought up the question about what do we do during this time and how to make money and that sort of stuff. know and see things that are just happening around and get you excited, and take that opportunity, take that off ramp and see where it goes, see what inspires you. Allow yourself to experience life. Don't just think I've got to get to the Rockies and make a beeline to it. Allow yourself to go through and experience life. And you may start off thinking you want the Rockies, but by the time you get halfway there, you might think, oh, well, maybe the beach is a better alternative. But allow yourself to have the opportunity to change your mind and just allow spirit to guide you. But you yourself have to make that turn, left, right, or straight. That ultimately is your choice. But I know that we've got a few more minutes, but if anybody wants to take a little step on that, I open it up.
So on that high note, William, thank you so much for really ending this session on that high note. That really brings us to the close.
I'm sorry. I gotta add, and here's another thing just popped in my head. I'm so sorry. So you're on that trip, and guess what? What happens when your car breaks down? What do? You call a tow truck. You call somebody to come in here, help you get your car, get you fixed so you can get back on the road. Well, guess what? That's what prayer ministry is all about. If you're on the side of the road and you're broke down and you can't figure out what to do or how to get your car fixed to get you to the next destination, call every one of these reverends right here. We will help you fix your car and get you back on the road. There you go, Gail. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Reverend William, for ending us on such a high note. So that actually brings us to the close of our exploration today with waiting for delivery. We all thank you for joining us. And we invite you to come back next week when we expand on another new topic that will certainly engage you and expand your consciousness. So our treasure takeaway for today is that prayer is a little like brownies or birthday cake, always better with frosting. So each prayer is amazing, and it never hurts to add on to the end, like Lori said, or something even better. So let's take a deep breath in together and make the transition into the part of this time together where we support our center financially. You'll see a message directing your donation. Please make a love offering here. We are very blessed by all of you that support our center. And as you choose to make a donation today, we all welcome it gratefully. So we've got a great live stream lineup this week. Mark your calendars for 10 a.m. every day. Tomorrow, Thursday, conversations with Reverend Charles and our very, very own Reverend Cheryl. You're not going to want to miss this amazing and uplifting conversation. And on Friday, Reverend Charles is back with Life on Love, an amazing and interactive discovery and connection with our very own Reverend Charles. Get to know him. Saturday, immerse yourself in a guided meditation facilitated by one of our beloved ministers. And of course, Sunday service and Spirit Boost, 10 a.m. with musical guests Scott and Alicia. So please join me now for our closing benediction. I invite you to breathe in with me and then exhale into a moment of quiet as I close this sacred space. As I say goodbye and thank you to each and every person here, I celebrate and give great thanks that there is only one thing going on, and that is God is all there is. And it is all divine energy that permeates this and all sacred space. I honor all the many, many different pathways that have converged upon this event today and all of the expansion that has unfolded. Because I know it is all God, and God is good. Not some of the time, but all of the time. For this and so much more, I am truly grateful. And as I conclude this benediction, please join me in saying, and so it is.